Have you ever walked past an old cottage covered in roses and wondered how someone created something so breathtaking? The truth is, many of those spectacular displays weren't planted last year or even 5 years ago. Some of them have been growing, blooming, and becoming more beautiful for decades. That's the incredible thing about climbing roses. Plant the right variety once, give it a little care while it's getting established, and it can reward you with stunning flowers year after year, often for generations. Most people assume roses are difficult. They picture endless pruning, constant spraying, and delicate plants that collapse at the first sign of trouble. But that reputation mostly comes from older hybrid roses that demanded constant attention. Today's best climbing roses tell a very different story. Many are surprisingly hardy, incredibly vigorous, and capable of covering fences, pergolas, garden arches, walls, and trellises with thousands of blooms while asking for surprisingly little in return. Imagine stepping into your backyard next summer and walking beneath an arch covered in fragrant blossoms. Imagine butterflies fluttering from flower to flower while bees quietly go about their work. Imagine drinking your morning coffee beside a fence, transformed into a living wall of roses. That's exactly what today's list is about. We'll explore 7 climbing roses that gardeners around the world treasure for their beauty, reliability, and remarkable longevity. Some bloom repeatedly from late spring until frost. Others produce unforgettable spring displays that become neighborhood attractions. And don't miss our final rose. It has been decorating gardens for well over a century and still ranks among the most spectacular climbers ever introduced. Let's begin. Number 7. New Dawn. If there were an award for the world's most dependable climbing rose, New Dawn would almost certainly be one of the finalists. Introduced in the 1930s, this elegant rose has remained popular for nearly 100 years, and for good reason. Its soft, blush-pink blooms seem to glow in the early morning sunlight. Each flower opens with delicate layers of silky petals surrounding golden stamens that attract bees and other helpful pollinators. When a gentle breeze moves through the garden, the flowers sway gracefully, filling the air with a fresh, sweet fragrance that's noticeable without being overwhelming. Unlike many climbing roses that bloom once and stop, New Dawn produces wave after wave of flowers throughout the growing season. That's one reason gardeners become so attached to it. Instead of enjoying roses for only a few weeks, they continue seeing fresh blooms from late spring well into autumn. Another remarkable feature is its adaptability. Whether growing over an arbor, climbing a fence, covering an old shed, or softening the side of a brick wall, New Dawn seems perfectly at home. It's also one of the easier climbing roses for beginners. It tolerates different soil types, handles occasional neglect surprisingly well once established, and recovers quickly after pruning. The healthiest plants grow in places that receive at least 6 hours of sunlight each day, although they can still perform reasonably well with slightly less. Water deeply during dry spells, rather than giving frequent shallow watering. Here's a helpful tip many experienced gardeners use. Instead of tying the main stems straight upward, gently train them horizontally whenever possible. Horizontal branches encourage many more flowering shoots, producing dramatically larger displays each season. Imagine standing beneath an arch, completely covered with hundreds of pale pink blossoms every summer. That's exactly why New Dawn has remained a favorite for generations. Memorable takeaway. Sometimes the oldest garden classics stay popular because they truly earn their reputation. Number 6. Zephirine Drouhin. Now here's a climbing rose with a fascinating personality. Zephirine Drouhin isn't just beautiful. It's also one of the few nearly thornless climbing roses available. Anyone who's ever finished pruning roses with scratched arms immediately understands why gardeners love this feature. Its smooth canes make training, pruning, and enjoying the flowers much easier. But that's only the beginning. Large, rich, cerise pink blossoms appear in generous clusters that almost seem too vibrant to be real. The flowers have an old-fashioned shape filled with soft, layered petals that give every bloom a romantic appearance. Then comes the fragrance. Many gardeners describe it as one of the strongest perfumes among climbing roses. Walking nearby often feels like stepping into a natural perfume garden. Another pleasant surprise is its flexibility. While most roses insist on full sun, Zephirine Drouhin tolerates partial shade better than many climbing varieties. That makes it especially useful for courtyards, east-facing walls, or gardens where buildings block part of the afternoon sunlight. It grows vigorously, often reaching 10 to 15 feet once mature. Give it a sturdy support, and it quickly transforms plain structures into colorful living features. One important tip: good air circulation helps reduce disease problems. Avoid crowding it against dense shrubs, and remove any weak or damaged stems during late winter pruning. Most gardeners discover that a little preventive care keeps this rose looking impressive for years. Its combination of fragrance, beauty, manageable maintenance, and almost thorn-free stems explains why it continues appearing in historic gardens worldwide. And we're only getting started. The next climbing rose produces flowers so abundantly that people often mistake it for an entire flowering tree rather than a single vine. Number 5. Golden showers. If your garden could use a little sunshine, even on cloudy days, golden showers might be exactly what you're looking for. Its name couldn't be more fitting. Throughout the growing season, this vigorous climbing rose covers itself with large, glowing golden yellow blossoms that seem to capture every ray of sunlight. As the flowers mature, their rich yellow tones often soften into creamy gold, creating beautiful variation across the entire plant. Imagine walking into your backyard on a summer morning and seeing hundreds of cheerful blooms climbing over a pergola or spilling across a white fence. Even from a distance, golden showers become an instant focal point. One reason gardeners love this variety is that it blooms repeatedly. Instead of putting on one spectacular show and disappearing for the season, it continues producing fresh flowers from late spring until the weather turns cold. Another advantage is its steady, manageable growth. Unlike some climbers that quickly become overwhelming, golden showers grows at a pace that's easy for beginners to train along trellises, walls, and arches. It performs best where it receives at least 6 hours of sunlight each day and grows in well-draining soil. Once established, it tolerates short dry spells much better than many people expect, although regular deep watering encourages even more blooms. Here's a simple trick experienced rose growers often use. After each wave of flowers finishes blooming, remove the faded blossoms. This encourages the plant to redirect its energy into producing another flush of beautiful flowers rather than forming seed hips. It's a small job that often rewards you with weeks of extra color. A few minutes of care can reward you with months of golden blooms. Number 4. Eden Rose, Pierre de Ronsard. Now we arrive at a climbing rose that many gardeners describe as one of the most beautiful roses ever introduced. The first time you see an Eden rose fully open, it's hard to believe it's real. Its enormous blossoms resemble old-fashioned peonies, packed with dozens of silky petals. Cream-colored outer petals gently wrap around soft pink centers, creating flowers that almost look hand-painted. Each bloom can be nearly the size of your hand. When dozens of them open together across an arbor or garden entrance, the effect is breathtaking. It's no surprise, this rose frequently appears in wedding gardens, botanical collections, and magazine photographs. But beauty isn't its only strength. Eden Rose is also remarkably long-lived. Many gardeners report their plants becoming more spectacular every year as the framework of mature canes develops. Patience is the secret. Unlike extremely fast climbers, Eden Rose often spends its first couple of years quietly building a strong foundation. Then, almost suddenly, it begins producing incredible displays that improve season after season. It grows best where it receives full sunlight and where air circulates freely around the plant. One helpful gardening tip is to avoid heavy pruning during the first few years. Allow the main canes to develop naturally while simply removing damaged or dead growth. This encourages the mature structure responsible for those spectacular flowering displays later on. Imagine opening your garden gate beneath hundreds of enormous romantic blooms every spring. That's why so many gardeners say Eden Rose becomes the crown jewel of their landscape. Some of the greatest garden rewards belong to those willing to be patient. The climbing roses that bloom for decades all share one important characteristic. They aren't demanding perfection. They simply reward consistency. Give them sunlight, healthy soil, occasional pruning, and sturdy support. And year after year, they quietly repay your effort with beauty that often becomes more impressive as time passes. But the next rose might be the toughest climber on today's list. If you've struggled with difficult weather or challenging growing conditions, you're going to love this one. Number 3. Don Juan. Some roses are admired. Don Juan is unforgettable. The moment its first deep crimson flowers begin opening, they immediately command attention. Each bloom is large, velvety, and richly colored, almost glowing like red velvet against glossy dark green leaves. In the evening light, the flowers become even more dramatic, creating a garden display that feels elegant and timeless. But there's another reason gardeners treasure this variety. Its fragrance. Unlike many modern roses that sacrifice scent for appearance, Don Juan produces a rich, classic rose perfume that fills patios, walkways, and outdoor seating areas with a wonderfully nostalgic aroma. It's the kind of fragrance that makes people stop walking just to enjoy it. Despite its luxurious appearance, Don Juan is surprisingly resilient. Once established, it tolerates heat well, handles summer humidity better than many climbing roses, and continues blooming repeatedly throughout the season. It thrives in locations with plenty of sunshine and fertile, well-drained soil. Regular watering during long dry periods helps produce larger blooms, but mature plants are generally dependable and vigorous. Here's a useful gardening secret. Train the long canes outward rather than allowing them to grow straight upward. This encourages more flowering shoots along the entire stem, giving you a much fuller wall of blooms instead of flowers concentrated only near the top. It's amazing how much difference this simple technique can make. Imagine relaxing outside on a warm summer evening while rich crimson roses climb gracefully overhead and fill the air with fragrance. That's the kind of garden experience Don Juan creates. Beauty becomes even more powerful when it appeals to every one of your senses. Our final two roses have stood the test of time for decades, not because they're trendy, but because they consistently deliver breathtaking displays year after year. Let's reveal them. Number 2. Iceberg Climbing Rose. Sometimes simplicity creates the biggest impact. The climbing iceberg rose doesn't rely on bold colors or unusual shapes. Instead, it creates pure elegance. Its snow-white blossoms appear in enormous clusters, almost like fluffy clouds floating across green vines. Each flower opens with soft, creamy white petals, before becoming brilliant white as it matures. On a sunny morning, the blooms almost sparkle against the foliage. When planted against a dark wooden fence, stone wall, or brick home, the contrast is absolutely stunning. But here's what really makes gardeners fall in love with this variety. It blooms, and blooms, and then some more blooms. From late spring until the first hard frost, climbing iceberg continuously produces fresh clusters of flowers. There are very few climbing roses that can match its consistency. The plant itself is vigorous but well-behaved, making it suitable for arches, fences, pergolas, and large trellises without becoming unmanageable. Another reason it's so popular is its resilience. Once established, it handles both warm summers and cooler winters surprisingly well, making it a dependable choice in many climates. For the best results, plant it in a location that receives plenty of sunshine and has soil that drains well after rain. Water deeply during extended dry periods, especially during the first year while the roots become established. Here's a simple tip that makes a huge difference. Feed your climbing rose with a balanced rose fertilizer in early spring and again after the first major bloom. Those extra nutrients often result in healthier foliage and an even longer flowering season. Imagine sitting beneath a white rose-covered arbor on a peaceful summer evening while butterflies drift through the blossoms. That's the quiet beauty climbing iceberg brings to a garden. Sometimes the most timeless beauty comes in the simplest colors. At this point, you've seen roses in soft pink, brilliant yellow, deep crimson, and pure white. Each one offers something unique. But the final rose isn't famous because it's the most colorful. It's famous because it has become one of the greatest climbing roses in gardening history. If you only plant one climbing rose this summer, many experienced gardeners would tell you to start here. Number 1. Cecile Brunner Climbing Rose. Nicknamed the Sweetheart Rose, Cecile Brunner has been charming gardeners for well over a century. And somehow, it never goes out of style. Unlike roses with enormous blooms, Cecile Brunner produces countless small, perfectly formed flowers that resemble miniature hybrid tea roses. Each blossom begins as a delicate pointed bud, before slowly unfolding into soft shell-pink petals with a gentle blush at the center. The flowers may be small, but they appear by the hundreds, sometimes by the thousands. When mature plants burst into bloom, it's almost impossible to see the leaves beneath the sea of soft pink flowers. The entire plant seems wrapped in a living blanket of blossoms. Its light, sweet fragrance makes walking beneath it feel like stepping into an old English garden. What surprises many beginners is just how long this rose can live. Properly cared for, Cecile Brunner can continue thriving for decades, often becoming more spectacular every passing year as its framework expands. It grows best in sunny locations with fertile, well-drained soil, though mature plants become surprisingly forgiving once established. One important tip is to provide strong permanent support from the beginning. Because this rose becomes quite vigorous over time, sturdy trellises, pergolas, or fences are much better than lightweight garden stakes. Another secret is patience. During its first few years, it may seem modest. Then one season, almost as if it decides it's ready, it explodes into an unforgettable display that only improves with age. Imagine your grandchildren someday, walking beneath the very same rose you planted this summer. That's the incredible legacy a climbing rose like Cecile Brunner can leave behind. Some gardens become unforgettable because someone planted them for tomorrow instead of just today. The most beautiful gardens aren't always the newest. They're often the ones filled with plants that have quietly grown stronger every single year. Climbing roses reminds us that gardening isn't about instant results. It's about planting something today that rewards you season after season. Whether you choose the graceful elegance of New Dawn, the rich fragrance of Don Juan, the romantic blooms of Eden Rose, the glowing flowers of Golden Showers, the dependable beauty of Iceberg, the nearly thornless charm of Zephirine Drouhin, or the timeless magic of Cecile Brunner, you're planting more than flowers. You're creating shade where there wasn't any. You're inviting bees and butterflies into your garden. You're adding fragrance to warm summer evenings. And you're building a landscape that becomes more beautiful every single year. Remember, climbing roses don't expect perfection. Give them sunshine, healthy soil, something sturdy to climb, regular watering while they're getting established, and a little seasonal pruning. In return, they'll reward you with decades of unforgettable blooms. One day you'll walk outside, look up at a wall or arbor covered in thousands of flowers, and realize that planting that single rose was one of the best gardening decisions you ever made. Which of these 7 climbing roses would you plant in your own garden? Have you already grown one that's been blooming for years? Or is there another favorite climbing rose you think deserves a spot on this list? Share your experience in the comments. Your advice could inspire another gardener. If you enjoyed this video and love discovering beautiful, easy-to-grow plants that transform ordinary spaces into extraordinary gardens, be sure to subscribe to Roots and Remedies and turn on notifications. We're always sharing practical gardening tips, timeless plants, and simple ideas to help you create a healthier, more beautiful garden one season at a time. Until next time, happy gardening, and may every season bring your garden a little more beauty than the last.